Hey Circuit Riders, welcome back to our Newfoundland series. We have been on vacation in Newfoundland for the past few weeks and in the wider maritime provinces of Canada. So I hope you've been enjoying those videos. If you haven't seen them, head back and watch them because we have done some epic things here and we are so enjoying our time in Canada. This week we're going to finish up with a trip up the Great Northern Peninsula to the northwest corner of Newfoundland. We want to see a historical Viking village up there and some other special things. So thanks so much for coming along.
Perfectly.
Oopsie. Here's hoping there's a gas station between here and the top of the world.
There's a non-zero chance there isn't.
So altogether, it's a 5-hour drive from our Airbnb, which is in southern Grossmorn Park, up to the top of the Great Northern Peninsula. This is this long peninsula that's up the northwestern corner of Newfoundland. I expected it
nicknamed the Viking Peninsula too.
Right, Viking Peninsula. I expected it to be very barren and desolate out here, which it is. It's mostly just mountains and trees and ocean. But I am surprised by how many little villages there are out here. I just looked up the total population of the whole peninsula is about 14,000 people right now as of 2021, I think. And they're just little tiny villages of a few hundred people dotted all along the coast. Again, it's fascinating to me that people can live in such remote areas and still have a sense of community and amenities and everything they need to live out here.
Now that population though has dropped off quite a bit from its height, which before the cod fisheries were closed down was probably the biggest thing. It was almost 50%.
24,000
Yeah.
in 1991, which was the year before the cod embargo, and a lot of people lost their jobs and left the peninsula at that time.
Yeah.
Just jumping in with a correction here. 2 videos ago, I mentioned that since the 1992 cod embargo, that all of the cod in Newfoundland was being imported since then. Well, it turns out that's not quite accurate. A couple of viewers commented to me that there is still cod fishing allowed on Newfoundland, but it is restricted in numbers and can only be fished at certain weeks or times of year for certain purposes. So they assured me that any cod that I'm eating in a Newfoundland restaurant is actually locally fished. So thanks a lot for those comments. It's always great to have accurate information.
Variety store there.
Very terminal.
They said the RV
People
park's
wait.
right here
This
for your
is
loop.
Yeah, the RV park for the ferry. Just making a quick pit stop in the little village of St. Barb because this is where the Labrador Ferry terminal is, way up the peninsula. If you want to go over to Labrador, I don't think this is Labrador. This is some kind of peninsula.
It's not Labrador.
So, yeah, on the other side of that.
It's an hour 45 ferry trip.
Yeah.
And actually, it's at the border of Quebec and Labrador. So
Right,
the
it's-
ferry
yeah.
actually lands in Quebec.
In Quebec. And then you
And
could
that's
go
just-
over the
it's
border.
right there on the border.
We would love to do that trip someday.
It's very tempting.
If we had more time, we would do it right now. The ferry runs 3 times a day. It's going to come in another hour, but we don't have time to wait for it. But there are a few RVs lined up ready to go over. didn't realize, but this place is actually a bed and breakfast, not just an Airbnb. So we have a nice private area in the back of the house here with a bedroom and a bathroom and a little fridge out in the hallway. And then she gave us a breakfast menu to mark what we want for breakfast tomorrow, and she's going to serve us out in the dining room. That's so nice. So we're here for one night just so that we can get as much as we can out of this area of the Viking village and the town of St. Anthony and some other little things. It looks like there's some icebergs out in the bay. So we're going to drop our stuff and get going. And a private little deck out here where we can see icebergs right from our patio. Ooh, over here. Well, we finally made it. We are at aux Meadows in the very top of the Great Northern Peninsula. This is a 1,000-year-old Viking settlement. In the early 1960s, a Norwegian archaeologist came over here following clues through Iceland and through Viking stories and myths about a group of Vikings that had come from Greenland to settle in North America. He came over here in the 60s and started asking the locals if they had seen any mounds or turf walls anywhere, and through that initial conversation was discovered the remains of this Viking settlement site. So we are so excited to be here. We feel like if we were able to make it to the Viking village, that we have really accomplished something on our Newfoundland trip. So let's go and check out this visitor center and all the Viking stuff. So the brochure says that this is the only authenticated Viking site in North America and the earliest evidence of Europeans in North America. So we're going to head outside and see if we can. There's some footprints of historical archaeological digs, and then they've got a reconstructed building at the end. We've just missed the last tour in English. They only have French ones left, so we're going to try to catch up with this English tour. But if not, we can read our little brochure.
And that's the problem. I think that's the problem.
So they catch them up.
So we're in one of the reconstruction halls here. It looks like they have reconstructed two small sod houses, and then this large hall would have housed the upper class, or tradesmen and their wives and things. About 30 people lived in this hall here, and about 1,000 years ago, Leif Erikson, the famous Norse explorer, led an expedition of these people from the Greenland colony over to here, and was the first European settlement here in Vinland, is what he called this area where he settled. Now, from here, they didn't live here constantly. They would stay for about 2 to 3 years at a time, just to do harvesting of hardwoods. The main export that they were after was hardwood trees from North America. They also took boat expeditions south to New Brunswick, where they would find grapes and other North American hardwood trees. And so the guide was just telling us that they would kind of cycle, they'd be here for maybe 2 winters or 2 summers and 1 winter, and then they would take turns taking the boat out at different expeditions. So it was kind of a workers' camp. There wasn't a lot of family life here, even though some children may have been born here, but not a lot of kids and families here. So they would come for a couple years at a time, get their trees, set up their camps, and then when they were full of cargo, head back. So a fascinating reconstruction and site here at aux Meadows.
Here really well. You can hear how that's all like spongy and dry.
So I guess these weren't houses; these were more like workshops.
You know what? The people may have slept here.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Oh yeah.
I don't think they
There
had
are
a lot
some
of
beds
single-use buildings.
I guess that's probably true.
Yeah.
So literally just down the road from our Airbnb is a trailhead for the Cape Raven Trail. Now, all of my research online about the International Appalachian Trail in Newfoundland says that it ends here at the Cape Raven Trail. I have not seen any trail markers for the IAT the whole time we've been in Newfoundland, so this is a little bit of a guess. But as far as I can tell from the maps and the official articles online, this is where the IAT completes in Newfoundland, and then it goes off the top of Newfoundland and jumps over, I think, to Greenland. So let's do a little hike here and just pretend that this is it. We're just pretending this is it.
No way to know.
We're heading next down to the town of St. Anthony, which is the largest town on the peninsula. But on the way, we're going to stop at Dark Tickle. This is a combination store, cafe, and economusée. If you don't know what an economusée is, that is French for little museum. It's usually in conjunction with some kind of store or something, and just highlighting some sort of craft. Or we went to a bee honey making economusée in Quebec one time, so that's how we know about it.
We also the wood carving stuff that was.
Oh yeah, there was another one.
That was very cool.
In Quebec as well.
In that Quebec City region.
So this economusée is highlighting the foraging or the harvesting of wild berries in the New World, and they have some wild berry jam here for sale as well. And here's some other cloudberry. We've had lingonberry, we have partridge berry at the RV. Looks like a lovely cafe upstairs, but we are going to keep heading on to the town of St. Anthony and see if we can get some dinner down there. Down at the lighthouse at St. Anthony's. This is a great sized town. We're going to eat at the Lightkeeper's Cafe. We got some fog rolling in. Huh? So we're down at the lighthouse point to go to dinner, and there's a little souvenir shop nearby. And in the back of the souvenir shop is a little museum about Newfoundland and Labrador. And they have this exhibit of this polar bear. This sign says that polar bears will swim from Labrador across 40 kilometers across the channel to St. Anthony sometimes, and in the winter, and they come over on the ice floes, and then they'll like walk around town here, or they'll be here on Fishing Point, and then later they'll go back to Labrador. If there's no ice for them to ride back on, then they'll swim back. That's amazing. I didn't know that Newfoundland had polar bears. And black bears are native to Newfoundland. This says Newfoundland has one of the largest populations of black bears in North America, about 10,000 across the island. However, moose are not native to Newfoundland. They were brought over here about 100 years ago, and I guess the population exploded, and now they're trying to control the moose a little bit more.
I like that.
A lot of icebergs. Not today, though.
On voulait faire avec 2 Manic 5 quand on est parti. On a dormi avec Oro. Tout le monde est de la Beauce. On a dormi avec Oro. On a fait Manic 2, Manic 5. Et après ça, on s'est rendu à Fermont. On a dormi la Pisca. On a dormi à la Pisca station en haut Manic 2. Après ça, on s'est rendu à Fermont.
Oh mon Dieu, c'est du monde!
So here's the town of St. Anthony. It's the largest town on the Great Northern Peninsula, a population of about 2,200. And it's obviously still a fishing community. There's all kinds of fishing boats down in the harbor, but it also has the only hospital on the whole Great Northern Peninsula. It's another misty morning here in northern Newfoundland. We are done with the bulk of our trip. We're going to head back down the peninsula today for a very long drive, about 8 hours over to Gander, which is in kind of central Newfoundland, just for a quick overnight stop and then back to St. John's. When we got back to St. John's, we just did a couple more things to finish out our trip. We drove south of the city to the little village of Petty Harbour. This is the hometown of Alan Doyle, who is the lead singer of the band Great Big Sea. They're one of the most famous things to ever come out of Newfoundland, and we love their music. So we wanted to go down and visit this cute, quaint little harbor town, and they certainly love Alan Doyle down there. Then we headed over to Quidi Vidi Wharf for some dinner. We went to the Quidi Vidi Brewery. You might remember that we visited here when we first arrived in St. John's a few videos ago, and it was so cute that we wanted to make sure and come back and experience this area when there was more people there. Wonderful dinner at the brewery and a wonderful view of the harbor. And then we finished out the evening with a trip to Signal Hill at the very top of the hill above St. John's. This is a former military fort, and over there, way across the bay, you can see the easternmost point of North America that we showed you in our St. John's video. It was so foggy the day that we were there that we could hardly see Signal Hill up here, but we were glad that it was a clear day when we were up on the hill. Thank you so much for coming along with us to Newfoundland. We had a wonderful time. It was a magical place, and we would love to come back. And I hope you got some good sense of the island and all that there is to do here. We'll see you next time in Nova Scotia as we do a quick visit to Halifax and then head back to our land in Maine. Have a great week, guys. Bye.
Your mainland girls, but I've known none so grand. You'll find no girls to love you like the girls of New